This is the 7th in our series of the 7 Habits of Highly Successful UC Professionals, and it's great to have you with us. We start out usually by talking about this idea that 80% of enterprise investments in UC projects don't have an overarching strategy and roadmap. And what that really leads to is opportunity for those of us as UC professionals to really do a better job of helping our internal companies and our customers really shape and formulate and understand their strategy. And in doing so, we have the ability to really make a difference. We won't talk too much today about the complexity of the communication ecosystem, but really to boil down to the idea that it all runs on bandwidth, and that this underlying infrastructure supporting all of our UC projects ultimately at some point will have so much pressure that if we're not proactively monitoring, managing, and making sure that it's robust, that at some point that infrastructure is going to crumble and fall on us. And that's habit one, that we need to be proactive in putting out fires. Not just always putting out fires, but working on our actual strategy. The second habit is beginning with the end in mind, knowing where we want to go. Like the Cheshire Cat said to Alice, if you don't know where you want to end up, it really doesn't matter which path you take. And habit 3 about putting first things first and really making sure that every day that all of our time is spent on the tasks that are most highest priority, the ones that will have the greatest impact. Those first 3 habits are really a self-directed change. In other words, what I mean by that is, and what Dr. Covey means by that, is that by being proactive, by beginning with the end in mind, and by putting first things first, we really have the ability to shape our own work so that we know that we are doing the things that need to be done when they need to be done, and that each day, as we have all of those challenges that we ultimately will have, that we're doing what's most productive or most useful for us and for our company. The second set of habits, think win-win, where we try to make sure that it's not always a winner and a loser in all of our interactions, but that we're really working together as partners with the people that we work with, our customers, our internal customers, our external customers, our bosses, our interpersonal relationships, all of those, that it's easy and pleasant for people to work with us. To seek to understand and then be understood, the ability to listen first and then speak. And then the sixth habit, synergize, where we find that the whole is greater than the sum of our parts. As we analyze those 3 habits, we realize that this ability to think win-win, seek first to understand, and then to be understood, and to work together as a team are those interdependent attributes, the ones that help us grow as a group, the one that helps us with our interpersonal relationships, the ones that help us sort of externally, whereas the first 3 are kind of internal habits. And as we look, and we didn't touch much on this last time, but this idea that very often our work is in silos, and if we can find a way to make those 2, make all of those silos work better together, the advantages will be more than just 1 + 1 = 2, but 1 + 1 = 4 or 5 or 6. And then sharpen the saw. And the idea behind sharpening the saw is really quite simple. I think that in the blog post I wrote, really it was Ferris Bueller who said it best: life moves pretty fast, and if you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. According to Stephen Covey's work on his website, sharpening the saw really means preserving and enhancing the greatest asset we have, which is yourself. So how do we preserve and enhance ourselves, our greatest asset? Well, Dr. Covey breaks down that renewal into 4 categories. He talks about physical renewal, social and emotional renewal, mental renewal, and spiritual renewal. And in our remaining time, which is just a few minutes today, I want to talk maybe about some ideas on how we can do each of those 4 kinds of renewals. First of all, physical renewal. I think the biggest problem we have mostly as executives is we just sit in our chairs in our office too much. The first step is really to get up and walk around a little bit. Like Ferris Bueller said, let's go take a look around. And managers who get up and move, management by moving around, management by walking around is what it's called. If we employ a practice of management by walking around, we're going to be so much more successful. I find that as I get up and move with my teams, and that sometimes means getting on a plane and going and visiting them, visiting customers and being out and about, I learn so much more about myself and about my team, but it's also good to be moving and not sedentary. Obviously, exercise is a critical component to this, but really the ability to just smile and move, as one of my favorite websites talks about all the time. Workplace cultures where physical activity is celebrated are better for everybody. We're more healthy, we're more alert, we're more active. I said in my blog post, we have a manager here who occasionally just gets up, and I see him with his coat on, regardless, rain or shine, walking around the building outside. I think we actually have to get up and move once in a while. The second place where we need to recharge our own batteries, where we need to really enhance and preserve ourselves, is our mental recharging. And that's really not just taking time away from work to veg out or not paying attention. It includes, obviously, critical components such as getting enough sleep, doing outside activities that we enjoy that aren't work-related, and the ability to take some real time off and recharge in a way that's not just going away for a corporate retreat and doing some planning, but really doing something else. And I really think that one of the best ways for me that I recharge and I find really valuable for me is to do some teaching, whether that be with my Boy Scout troop or a youth ministry class on Sunday. When I do some teaching, that's good mental recharging. It makes me study something else, makes me prepare a presentation. It helps me use my brain in creative and ways that are different than my everyday workday activity. And I really love combining both of those two things by getting outdoors with my kids and doing some hiking and doing some camping and having the opportunity to kind of commune with nature, which really takes us to our third area of self-renewal, which is spiritual renewal. And this isn't just a religious principle, but Dr. Covey talks about the idea that we need to renew our sense of self, our spirit, if you will. And there's so many great ways to do that, whether it's get involved with the arts, enjoy music. I have a couple of colleagues who like to paint. They're not very good at it, but they like to do it. The ability to go sometimes a little bit outside of yourself, like I said, hiking in the mountains, or visiting a historical site. I know that I've had some profoundly spiritual experiences, not in the religious sense, but in the sense of finding out who I am and what I believe and what I feel. Standing, for example, on the battlefield at Gettysburg and contemplating what took place there, brother versus brother and father versus son, as our country kind of struggled for its identity in the mid-1800s. And just the sense of what I felt there at Gettysburg has kind of carried over with me for years and years. And sometimes it's those sorts of things that we need to help renew our spirit and our sense of who we are. Steve Jobs said in his Stanford commencement address in 2005, your work is going to fill a large part of your life. And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. I think sometimes we're so deep into what we do every day, we kind of stop loving what we do. And really spiritual renewal is about connecting with something outside of work so that when we get back to work, we can renew that love affair that we had when we started this job. Steve goes on to say, if you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. And spiritual renewal is actually, in some ways, getting away from work so that when we come back to it, we can kind of fall in love again with what it is that we do. And if we don't like what we do, then change. Don't keep doing the same thing over and over and being dissatisfied. It carries over into so many other parts of our lives that it damages our relationships in all the other aspects. So if you don't like what you're doing, I guess the encouragement is find something else. Don't settle. And the last place that he talks about is really this idea then of bringing all of these things together. Physical renewal, getting up and moving. Social and emotional renewal I didn't really talk about, but that's moving outside yourself and doing something for somebody else. Finding ways to give back and make a difference through volunteering or brightening someone else's day or just being a good listener. But this idea of physical renewal, getting up and moving a little bit, social, emotional renewal, kind of getting outside yourself and helping somebody else. Mental renewal, the ability to not just veg out, but to really recharge our mental stores, and then spiritual renewal. If we can do those four things and really take care of our most important asset, that's ourselves, look, the bottom line is there are many people that depend on you. It's you, your friends, your family, your loved ones, your coworkers. The most important asset you have is you. As we look at this idea of the 7 habits in its totality, let me just sum up with this. There's those first 3 habits of getting ourselves focused. What do we really want, and how do we get there? And am I doing the right thing right now to make sure that I am using my time as effectively as possible? Then we look at that second set of habits where we say, am I helping other people win? And when you help other people win, you realize the pie is big enough for us to all be winners. And then listen more than we talk and really understand other people. And then the ability to help bring teams together and get more out of the whole than the sum of its parts. Oh, it's so critical then that we know where we're going and how we're going to get there and what's most important to do, that we work on those interpersonal relationships with others, but then critically as we wrap up today, that we know that we're also taking care of ourselves. And we're taking care of ourselves physically, we're taking care of ourselves socially and emotionally, we're taking care of ourselves mentally, and we're taking care of ourselves spiritually. So when we go back and work on those first 6 habits, that we're even more effective at doing those. Dr. Covey talks about this continuing to be an upward spiral, that we work on each of these habits individually and collectively, and that we continually try to improve and grow and be better. I know as I've been giving these presentations and been working on this content that I've made changes in my life. I encourage you to do the same. Find yourself on this journey where you're continually getting a little bit better and a little bit better. This book is a couple of decades old, but I encourage us all to go back and read it. Dr. Covey was onto something. And I really believe that as we really do our best to work on ourselves and make ourselves the best person we can, as we sharpen that saw, we're more effective in all the other aspects of our life. We've gone a little bit over time here. I appreciate your participation not only in today's webinar, but in the other ones. Thank you so much for being a part of this. We'll kick off a new series around the first of the year. I hope you'll be willing to participate then. And for all of you, have a great, safe holiday season, and really enjoy yourselves and your time with your family and your loved ones and this holiday season. Have a great holiday season, and we'll talk to you again hopefully at the beginning of the new year.